After you've prepared your cell sample, you'll need to prepare your chips for loading the sample into the kit. The first thing I like to do is take fresh DEP medium and wash it into the chip. You'll get a nice little bubble forming on top of the chip, and then you take a lint-free towel and just wipe out all of that DEP medium. This cleans the chip coming out of the box and gives it a nice surface for the cells to enter into the chip. Now, for loading the chip, there's a couple different ways that you can load the chip, and this is completely up to personal preference and your cell type. So for instance, I use red blood cells. Red blood cells are small, and they're used to shear stresses. So using something like a bent needle and syringe works perfectly for the red blood cells. However, if you have a larger cell type, you'll need a larger gauge needle, or if you're worried about the shear stresses on those cells, you'll want to go to a pipette. For the needle and syringe, a 1 ml syringe is sufficient, and I use a 25 gauge needle in this case, and you can see that it's bent slightly. So this is just used taking a pair of scissors and bending. We also cut the serrated part of the needle so that it's a blunt needle. This way, you prevent damaging the back surface of your chip. So if you're using the needle, you'll simply take some of your cell sample and load your chip. Now again, this is completely up to personal preference. Some people like to leave the chip lying flat on the desk, in which case you'll come over top of the chip and in any well that you wish, pipette in your cell sample. And what you'll notice is you get this nice meniscus forming right on top. Now with the flat end of your needle, you can then wipe this across the chip. You'll then take an 18 by 18 millimeter cover slip. So this is a special size cover slip, so you'll need to order these ahead of time. And you'll place that over your meniscus. Now the nice thing with using the needle is if you see any bubbles in your chip, you can then simply push the cover slip out of the way and pop the bubbles with your needle tip. So that's one of the advantages to using a needle. If you're using the syringe, there are advantages to the syringe use as well. For example, if you're very limited on your cell sample, so if you've only got, a mil or even less of your cell sample, you'll want to make sure that you keep track of how much volume you're using. With these 1 ml syringes, you can't get a good measure of that, whereas with these, with the pipettes, you can measure out exactly the minimum requirement volume to fill these chips. Depending on your cell type, that's somewhere between 75 microliters and 85 microliters. So you'll take your cell sample, and in this case, I'll demonstrate what you would do if you want to hold the chip. So previously, I let the chips lay flat on the table, and in this case, you can also keep the chip at an angle, and you can pipette the liquid in that way. And again, you can pick any well that you want. And then you'll just take the pipette tip, and again, smooth out that meniscus. You'll take your cover slip and gently layer that cover slip on top of the meniscus so that all of the sample evenly distributes.